Okay, so this is our projection system. Also, I apologize that this is in 720. I know, it's like we're in the early 2000s, but this is the only camera I have that has autofocus. Just be the easiest. Okay, so this has, when I first got here, they were running ProPresenter off of a PC, and it just wasn't working at all. So, and then our projector died, and so I replaced the projector. And when I did that, I figured that'd be a good time to switch over from analog to HD. So reran cable, so everything was HDMI, and updated our system. So got this iMac, and then got this switcher board, and then ran some new cable. So, so how to turn it on the system? What we're going to do is flip on all of the outputs and then switch the iMac on last. So we're going to switch this power button. That will switch on the switchers, and then we're going to take this projector, and we have to go up to the stage, click it on, and then also there's a remote right underneath this camera right here. That there's a remote to the stage display back TV there. So I'm going to go do that real quick. Okay, so while those things are turning on, that should be on HDMI 3 input. As far as the projector goes, I did recently replace the bulb, so probably within the last couple months. This is, what is this, August 2019? The previous bulb was saying that it needed to be replaced. And so I replaced it with a bulb off the internet, and then it proceeded to break, which thankfully didn't hurt our projector itself, but I did need to replace the bulb. So I ordered a bulb from a different manufacturer, and that one worked fine. So I thought that I would show you these TVs real quick. So when I put these TVs in the lobby, I didn't run cable. So this screen is independent from the projection system. So we wanted one that could run it independently from the projection system, and that wasn't tethered to it. That one is tethered to the projection system. I'll talk about that in a little bit. When I installed this TV, I also installed this input panel. So if you want to plug computers in, there's a variety of things that you can plug in there, and then it'll go to that TV. Assuming that everything's been put back where I usually put it, there's a remote in this drawer right here in the info desk. Remote works for both TVs, so just make sure when you are turning on one that you're not turning off the other, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think I might have just turned off one. So this one is going to start up, and this one is the one that runs independent, like I said. So how you start the slideshow pre-service, assuming that this is still happening. So Emily loads slides into the photo drive on the network, and then this essentially plays the slideshow slides off of the network. So you press this slender Vizio button, and then it'll say multimedia. I know it's hard to see. Multimedia, you press OK. And then it'll say music, video, or photo. You'll go down to photo, press OK. And then you'll go over, press this over right arrow button, and go to photo once again. And this is selecting the photo folder off of the drive. And then again, click over once and select the slide one. And then click OK. And then it will say start slideshow. And then you press OK again. And then that will start on a loop, and that will just continue to loop. That That one, it didn't turn on, but that one should be set to the correct input. So we'll just go ahead and turn that off. So that is how you set up the lobby TVs. This TV over here was put in by the Missional Pathways. It has its own remote, and it's just Velcroed on the back here. There is a way that we have done where we just play off a thumb drive, a slideshow off the thumb drive, and again that just runs independent to itself. They haven't had a flash drive in recently, so I haven't started it. Okay, let's jump back to the projection booth. Okay, so the last thing that we need to turn on is this iMac. Now, this is every system has its quirks. I've been trying to figure this one out for a while, and I've tried to have somebody come in, and actually the guy who set up this system worked for AGI in Eugene. So they are the company that I've contracted with the most. Actually, pretty much for everything. Sound system and video and lighting. He used to work for them. He no longer works for them. He contracts through his own business, but he also works for a church. So anyways, he's just really busy. Enoch is his name, and I've been trying to get together with him. Last time we scheduled a time, I ended up being really sick, so that was a bummer. Anyways, I'm trying to figure out how I can get him over here to see if he can figure it out. So essentially what happens sometimes is when you turn on the iMac, the backlight of the screen will not light up, and what it's trying to do, I think, is push the output from that should be going here to the projector. And so then the projector will light up, and you'll see the loading bar for the Apple, but then it'll give this, I don't know, like power error sign with a whole bunch of things in different languages, and it just continues to cycle trying to start up. So what I've done is, if I don't see a backlight when I press the power button and you hear it start up, if I don't see a backlight, then I unplug both HDMI cables in the back and adapters, and then usually it restarts on its own, and then it logs in fine. I'll log in to the computer, wait for just a little bit till everything loads, and then I plug the inputs back in. What you can do, which is not ideal, is if you don't see the backlight, unplug the adapters, and then do a hard restart. So let's see how it does. It doesn't happen every time, which is, again, why it's hard to figure out why it's intermittent. Okay, so yeah, this is what happens. So you see that loading up there. So it's just going to continue to cycle. And like I said, I don't really know why it's doing that. So I'm going to unplug these two adapters in the back here, these two. And just remember which side they were unplugged to. And we'll see if it cycles on its own. If it doesn't cycle, then I'll just do a hard restart. Okay, so it just cycled fine. I just waited a little bit. Okay, then you just log in. The password currently is iMac. I know, super creative. Lowercase, no spaces. Oops. While this is loading, I'll tell you about this. So this is our switcher over here. Okay, so this Blackmagic. Here, let me set this tripod up real quick. Okay, so this Blackmagic here is for our ATEM system, and this is tied to the program, the app on the computer, which we can assign where it goes. This one down here are the lights. If you're not familiar with these, you press this button and now you have a light here. This switcher so it has 4 inputs, and then it's telling what inputs go to which outputs. And so here here is your 1 and your output. In output 1, you have input 1 going to output 1. Input number 4 going to output 2. And on this piece of paper, which will be on top of here, it tells you which inputs and outputs are what. So output 1 is HDMI 1, output 2 is HDMI 2, output 3 is the Blackmagic, output 4 is projection, stage display, cafe. And then inputs main computer, stage display, Kramer, which is this bottom one, and Blackmagic, which is this ATEM. I did run a few extra outputs to where the posters are, and I don't know if the posters will still be there forever, but they're right outside the double doors into the sanctuary on those walls there. Usually the ushers sit in chairs right against there. I didn't know if in the future we would want to put TVs there, and so I just ran cable there just in case. Obviously that hasn't happened, but just so you know, that's what I did. So this bottom one is the Kramer, and this goes to the projector. So we have HDMI 1, which is lit up right now. So that's from the iMac, whatever the iMac is projecting, that's where what's going to the screen. HDMI 2 is whatever you have on the ATEM, selected on the ATEM, which I'll show you in the app. Whatever you have selected in the app, that's going to go to the screen. And generally what we use for that is for the baptisms. So we set up the camera I'm using right now on a tripod, and then we plug it in with an adapter that goes into the wall, and we select, that's camera 3 in the ATEM, and then we select HDMI 2, and then again, if you have it selected in the ATEM, then when you hit HDMI 2, it will show up on the screen. There's a little bit of lag, and sometimes it flickers just a little bit, but it will show up there. The only other ones we really use are blank. So if you want to blank something on the screen, go ahead and hit that, or freeze. So if you have something on the screen and you just wanted to freeze on that, you'll just hit freeze. Whenever you do blank or freeze, of course, just make sure you turn them off whenever you're done with that. One thing over here, this is a monitor, and I couldn't figure out for a while. We had over here, we had our display for the ATEM, and I haven't been able to figure out why I'm not able to get that back up. So we would have all of our inputs, and then we'd have the selection, and I'll show you what it looks like on this screen. But for some reason, I haven't been able to get it back. Okay, so down here, I wonder if it'd be better if I turn off the light. Debatable. Okay, so how I've organized this is per presenter and then the ATEM. So let me open up the ATEM. So what I've generally done is just have the projection text open up per presenter and ATEM together, just to get in the habit of doing that. Okay, so what we have on here is iMac. Okay, just a little bit. Okay, so iMac program is what you're currently on, showing. Preview is what's on board. So if you want to switch back and forth between things. So this shows in the lobby. So the other lobby TV that's next to the cafe, whatever we have selected here, that's going to go to that TV. iMac is supposedly supposed to be, again, whatever's running out of the iMac. So whatever's in per presenter going up to the screen, that would technically go to there. Stage display, camera 1, which is Oh no, I think I have them backwards. Camera 1, I believe, is the camera that's on stage for like baptism. So when we plug it in on stage, that's camera 1. Camera 3 is the one that we use for the shooting video of the service, so the one over by the soundboard, the JVC. So that's camera 3. So again, I haven't been able to figure out in my troubleshooting why the iMac feed's not working, but camera 3 works. So what I generally have the projectionist do is just hit camera 3, and so what the people are seeing in the lobby is the camera feed from inside the sanctuary. Okay, so that's the ATEM software. And then what we do for per presenter, I'm probably not going to go all through the ins and outs of per presenter, but I will show you how we switch back and forth between Keynote and per presenter, just so you know. Okay, so generally what we do when we are, I think the projector turned off. Okay, so what essentially we do when we switch back and forth between Keynote is we have the Keynote open. So we have the Keynote presentation open already, selected on the first slide, and then what the projection tech does right before the message is we just hit the output button up here. So that's going to turn off the output from per presenter. So on the projector, you'll see the background of the computer, just the desktop. And then we go to Keynote, and then we hit play. So we just start the presentation. And then whoever's speaking takes over from the remote iPad on stage to advance the slides. If we're doing it where we'll run the slides out of per presenter, then again we can do the remote where the speaker can advance slides, or of course if not, then the projection tech will. If we're running Keynote, then what we need to do is switch here, which will switch the stage display monitor. So because we're exiting out of per presenter and going into Keynote, now we need to switch the display back here so the presenter can see what they need to see. So how we do that is we go to Recall. Come on, you can focus, it's okay, you got it. Okay, Recall to, and then Lock over here. So what that does is it changes the output to the stage display. And then once the message is done and we're switching back to per presenter, we need to hit Recall 1, Lock. And then of course once you hop back into per presenter, you just hit that output back on, and then per presenter takes back over of the screen. Okay, the iMac, or the iPad that we use as a remote is just this mini iPad here. And let me log in real quick. So right now the password is Micah, M-I-C-A-H, lowercase, no spaces. And then, so here we have Keynote, and then we also have per presenter's remote. So if the speaker's running out of per presenter, then assuming we're on the right Wi-Fi, which this is important, we need to make sure the Wi-Fi is on the same one. So we've connected to SAC's network, so assuming that it's this is also connected to it, it'll automatically connect. And then you hit it over here, you hit the remote button, and then the slides will pop up here, and then they can advance them here. Keynote, if we're running slides out of Keynote, then go ahead to the Keynote app, and then up here, there is in the top corner, there's a remote button, and so you just hit that once, and then I don't have the Keynote presentation open now, but it will search, and then a green play button. It will say play, and it'll be green, will be up, and then it's ready. So then what I do is just go put this on the table up front on stage. I don't have Keynote open, so it's not finding it, but that's how you do that. And then the presenter, whenever they're ready to start their presentation, they'll just hit the play button and then go from there. If for some reason it disconnects, which sometimes it does because Wi-Fi, well, that's just Wi-Fi, and the pastor loses connection, if they want you to try to fix it, I would suggest just double checking the Wi-Fi, so make sure you're on stack, and then just reopen the program. At times, if you try to initially connect from the stage, sometimes it doesn't like that, depending on how far away from the computer you are, but usually it will connect just fine. Okay, so that's the remote. Just a technical spec for the projector. It's a Mitsubishi, and you can find it in my email if you just search Mitsubishi. It's the video feed is squished, so I know it's terrible. We didn't have enough budget to buy a new screen, so that's still a 4x3 screen. I'm sure you noticed that. It's not 16:9, so eventually I would have loved to hang a new screen. So just so you know, we've essentially taken the widescreen video and squished it into a 4x3 screen, which I know is not ideal at all, but that's what's going on. So if the images looked a little squished or whatnot, that's why. So technically the system is run on widescreen, but our screen is not, so we have to squish the projection image into a 4x3 screen. Like I said, there's a stage display screen in the back, and trying to think if there's anything else for projection. Not that I can think of. One more thing, I guess I'll explain it. So for stage display, for troubleshooting, I don't know why the projector turned off, but for troubleshooting, if your displays are not right, or if you can't get one to show up, go to preferences, and then go to displays. Okay, yeah, for some reason the projector turned off. So there should be two screens here, and I have this sticky note down here that shows you what it should be. So output should be in the middle, and then stage display should be on the right. So what I do is I drag the middle screen over to the right screen so it switches the inputs, or the outputs, I'm sorry, and then I switch them back to where they're supposed to be. And then I double check that this enables stage display is checked, and then I double check that up here that this is on. So sometimes when you switch the displays, it will turn that output off. That's how I troubleshoot, and if you still can't get the displays to come up correctly, I shut down save all, shut down per presenter, flip off our switcher, so flip that off, wait a second, flip it back on, restart per presenter, and then again, if needed, go back up to displays. So stage display, I have a music, which is current slide and next slide, message, which is current slide and timer, and then a couple other ones. So what we've done is we started putting cues. So this is this icon here for stage display. So when you hit that slide, it's automatically going to switch stage display to whatever display you want it to. So music is generally music or message. If a presenter is presenting, we do message. Now with the timer up here, if you go to clocks, countdown 1 is 30 minutes, countdown 2 is whatever you want it. So if you have two different presenters, then what you need to do is on on the first presenter, just go ahead and add a stage display cue for message. But for the second presenter, because they have a different clock, and I've configured the stage displays to look a little different. For countdown 2, we have to use presenter 2 for them to see the countdown, the second countdown timer, since they're 2 different ones. And then what's important to note is if you add a timer cue, so we'll just say this presenter 1, countdown 1, then you also need to go in and edit the countdown. So edit cue and then countdown. And then it will say start timer, stop timer, reset and start timer. So what you need to do is say reset and start timer. Why that's important is because if you have 2 services or multiple services, you start for the first service and then it will just keep going and the timer will keep going. And even if you come back here, it's just going to keep going. So what you need to do is select restart and start timer. So that way when you come in during second service, wherever the timer is, it's going to restart it and start over. I'm just going to remove this. So that's really important for the timer countdown. For the camera, for the projection system is this guy, and it goes from an HDMI cable into this SDI converter, and then the SDI cable runs to the projection booth. Okay, to set up the baptism camera on stage, so we connect this end of this twist lock connector, BCG or something, I forget now. Whatever this connector is, you connect this into a port that is on stage left. So if you're looking at the stage from front of house, it's stage right, or it's to your right. But it's I think it's tucked behind the panel, but you'll find it if you look at it. It's outlet wall height, but you connect this into it, and then this is just essentially a converter. So you have your SDI out, which goes into the wall, and then you have your HDMI, which goes into this camera that I'm recording on. This camera only accepts a smaller HDMI port, so that's why we have this cable here. And then plug these in. So one of them plugs into the camera to power it. One of them plugs in to power this converter. And then just make sure, if you want to record whatever you're recording, just make sure to put an SD card into the camera, this camera, mount it on a tripod, and then whenever you're ready in the service, just make sure to press record. Otherwise, you'll get feed up on the screen. And so that's how you connect the camera to the stage input. And then, like I said before, to get it up on the screen, you need to go into your ATEM app, select camera 3, I believe, or I'm sorry, camera 1, which is this camera, and then go to your switcher, which is to the projection text left, to the bottom row, which is the Kramer, and then you're going to hit HDMI 2. And then whatever you have selected on the ATEM app, when you hit HDMI 2, it will show up on the projection screen. So the other thing I forgot to mention with the iMac, so we have that the booting issue when you first start up. So I contacted Apple and they said, oh, that's weird. Oh, back up. So I think what might have happened to contribute to this is I think an intern might have restarted the computer during an update. Now, I'm not convinced that's what it was, because I talked to Apple about it and they said, well, try switching out your adapters, which I did on the back of the computer. They said update your output firmware. And so I did that. And then they finally said just format your computer and wipe it and then reinstall the system, operating system. So I wiped it and then reinstalled the current operating system, and it still did it. So just so you know what I've tried to do to fix it, those are things that I've done, and it still sometimes intermittently boots up incorrectly. There is a external hard drive, a bigger Seagate one, like the big desktop type ones, that I backed up the iMac with. So I backed up everything on the iMac, the projection iMac, onto that Seagate. Now the smaller SSDs, the smaller external hard drives, just the handheld type ones, those are in a desk drawer, and those have all the services and videos and stuff. But the big one, that's the one I use to back up the iMac, so just so you know.